Today let's talk a little about the evolution of Taurus handguns. The two examples I have here today are going to help us represent our topic, so let's get right into it. During the mid-1970s, some of the early Taurus semi-autos and revolvers being imported to the U.S. Quickly gained a somewhat shaky reputation within the shooting community. There were some quality control issues that certainly needed to be addressed, and that eventually affected sales here in the United States. But that was Taurus then. From here, let's move ahead to Taurus now. Taurus eventually sold their holdings to an investment group who, at the time, had also acquired all of Smith & Wesson's holdings. After quite a bit of restructuring, Taurus began to make some really good handguns. The Beretta facility in Sao Paulo, Brazil, had previously been manufacturing Beretta 92s and M9s there to help fulfill their military contracts. After completing that production run, Beretta sold the factory outright, lock, stock, and barrel to Taurus. Along with that came the rights to continue producing the Model 92. It wasn't long before Taurus began making some noticeable changes to the 92's design, such as squaring off the military-style trigger guard and relocating the safety from the slide and placing it onto the frame, while still incorporating the decocking feature. This modification rectified one of the major complaints people had about the Beretta, which had to do with accidentally engaging the slide-mounted safety while racking the slide. Nevertheless, these modifications were the beginnings of Taurus's PT series handguns. This example is a PT-100 Plus chambered in 40 Smith & Wesson. This Plus model differs from the standard PT-100 by having a somewhat beefier frame and slide. The grip frame also has finger grooves milled into it, which makes this Plus model easily distinguishable from the standard model, which lacks these enhancements. When I first reviewed this particular Taurus a few years ago, one of my subscribers, who happens to be a Brazilian police officer, informed me that this beefier Plus model was initially developed for the Brazilian military and police. Since most militaries prefer having firearms capable of firing ammo at an almost industrial level, having a beefed up sidearm undoubtedly makes sense, especially if it's chambered for the 40 Smith & Wesson round. The PT-100 Plus utilizes 16-round double-stack magazines. As a side note, these magazines are proprietary and will only fit the Plus model. In other words, these magazines will not work in Taurus's standard PT-100, and vice versa. This Taurus did come from the factory with 2 magazines. Additional magazines for this Plus model can be ordered directly from Taurus. To date, I've got a lot of rounds through this Taurus, and I found it to be robust, accurate, reliable, and very soft shooting, especially when compared to other 40 caliber handguns. This revolver is another one of Taurus's more recent designs. This is their 627 tracker with a 4-inch ported barrel. This 627 tracker is a 7-shot revolver that looks remarkably like a Smith & Wesson 686 Plus. This, by the way, wasn't by chance. If you recall, I'd mentioned earlier that the same investment group owned both Taurus and Smith & Wesson. They had Taurus begin cloning Smith & Wesson revolver designs in Brazil and selling them at a lower price point. The exterior finish may not quite measure up to Smith & Wesson standards, but the price reflects that. Make no mistake, Taurus's Smith & Wesson clones are excellent handguns. The lower price point also happens to make them an outstanding value. If you happen to be a fan of Smith & Wesson style revolvers, you might want to take a closer look at what Taurus now has to offer. I've uploaded reviews on both of these Taurus handguns. If you'd like additional details, feel free to check out those videos. I'll leave links to them in the description box below. Anyway, I just wanted to touch bases with all of you Taurus fans and perhaps lure a few of you Beretta and Smith & Wesson fans over to the dark side. Kidding aside, these newer Taurus handguns really are worth looking into if you're in the market for a new firearm. Taurus really has come a long way since the old days. In recent years, they've really stepped up their game by producing high-quality, innovative firearms based on proven designs. Seriously, what's not to like about that? Until next time, practice often, shoot straight, and thanks for stopping by.